Welcome to this episode of the Upfront Podcast. As always, I am your host, Nina Mueller, and this is the place where you get your dose of upfront and honest conversations with people from all around the world. Enjoy the show. My guest today is my dear friend Tomer Yair Zemel, who was born and raised in Jerusalem, Israel. He is a social activist for causes that he is most passionate about. Tomer works in the high-tech industry and has been living close to Tel Aviv for the past several years. He is single and hoping to come across the love of his life, which is another reason for you to go into the show notes where you can find a link to his social media pages. We are speaking about his coming out, what he would recommend for other people to focus on when coming out themselves, what the pride is really all about, and what still needs to change to give everyone equal legal rights. I would like to preface this conversation by saying that I can't speak on any individual experience or opinion of the LGBTQIA2S+ community. This is simply to raise awareness, to share a personal story, and discuss what I feel is of great social importance to reaching an inclusive society, but is yet not spoken about enough on mainstream media. I hope you enjoy the show, and please do join in the conversation in the comments on Instagram or Facebook at The Upfront Podcast. Also, if you or anyone you know is in need of support, please check the show notes for information on helplines. Hi, Tomer. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. How's it going?
Perfect. Thank you so much. So please go ahead and tell me a bit about yourself.
So I am from Ramat Gan in Israel, originally from Jerusalem, and moved here about 5 years ago. I am getting older by the minute. I'm 39, and what else? Single, gay, and sort of like a late bloomer. I work in the data industry. Just slightly went over from cyber industry, so I'm sort of all over the place, and that's and sort of like a social activist when it comes to fighting for what I believe in. That's it.
Amazing. What do you mean by late bloomer?
Late bloomer. I sort of came out of the closet when I was relatively old. I would say.
Mhm.
So a good way to do that would have been if I came out at 15 or 16 or 19. I only came out when I was 34, which means everything was a bit delayed in terms of relationships, in terms of personal journeys, personal growth. So I mean, I'm calling it late bloomer. That's it just sounds better than reaching everything, in a later stage.
Right. What was your coming out like for you?
Weird. It was a really long process because I really didn't grow up around any of this. I grew up in Jerusalem, where it was sort of like a non-topic, maybe more like a curse or something like that. And I wasn't aware of the community, definitely of not aware of anything that goes on in Tel Aviv, which is like the home of the gays, and everybody makes everybody feels very comfortable. Obviously, there are struggles, but there is so much to this community. And when I came out, I didn't know anything or anyone, so it was kind of a struggle. I told some of my best friends, which were like, some were like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," and some were like completely shocked and took 500 steps away. My father was one of the toughest challenges. He was so loving and accepting, but he took it as a shock, and we had to like stay away from one another for a few months until he sort of like, I don't know, takes it all in.
Hmm.
So it was it was what it was.
So did you always know that you were gay, or did you have to like find out what those feelings exactly were somehow?
Mm, I think somewhere inside I always knew. I did live with a woman for 2 years, and she was amazing and loving, and women are the best. Like, I loved how she sort of like helped me, with everything in my life, and I loved her. But I did know that something is missing, and I always knew that something is missing. I always knew that guys like seems to be more interesting, but I couldn't really understand what it means. I just
Hmm.
put it somewhere, hidden in my mind, and I don't know, just popped again at later in life.
Yeah, I understand. And also, I guess if you're not really surrounded by like gay people, I could imagine it's a lot harder to figure out what that is like for you, what that means for you, how you can
Yeah.
identify yourself. So you said you grew up in Jerusalem. What was that like in such a religious environment?
Well, I did, I am pretty old, so I grew up with when video was available. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a show called Gay as a Folk, something like that. הכי גאים שיש.
Hmm.
And that was like a secretly thing tape that I used to record at night and watch it, like under the blankets. And that would be like my understanding of the gay world, like how gay people live, what they do. It's pretty similar to what goes on in Tel Aviv, only it's a bit more extreme in some cases.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't be able to talk about it with anyone, like not so much as a religious environment, but an environment that I don't know how to explain it, like completely separated from what, if we think that TV is reality today in some manner, back then it was a completely different world. It was very, very understandable that what happens there is not what happens in reality, definitely not in Jerusalem. Everything is hidden, everything is secret, everything is, like very, very hush hush when it comes to sex life, even straight people. It was, again, a challenge, but there were also a lot of beautiful things. We didn't talk about, or move towards this path of relationship, sex, whatnot. We were just friends and, having fun, enjoying life, basically just being in the moment. Like it is what it is right now, and we have nothing else other than that. That's the blessing of the 90s. No FOMO regarding anything.
Oh, what a beautiful era.
Yeah,
That must have
definitely.
been in some regard.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we're at a much more like aware and inclusive point, like compared
Mm-hmm.
to every day, pretty much the day before. But we're
Mm-hmm.
still nowhere close to like an actually inclusive society globally. I've recently watched an interview online where they discussed whether people should still feel the need to come out, as they phrase it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I do wish actually that every like sexual orientation was just accepted equally, really, and no one would have to feel like they have to label themselves publicly, kind of. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I feel like it is also very important for people to declare how they identify, which gender they love, or whether they don't love a gender specific person or whatever it is. Even if it's just to like generate more awareness.
Yeah.
What is your stance on this, on actually coming out?
Well, it's a complicated issue. Being on sort of like a couple of fronts throughout the years where I stood as what I thought it was a straight man, and watching, things happen around the world, like people coming out, like leaders and all sorts of main characters in the media world. I was like, oh my God, I mean, probably their career is over. And then sort of finding out that I'm in the same spot, obviously not as a world leader, but as a person, and thinking, oh my God, my life is over. And that's a terrible thing to go through, like, as a person. And I think that even today people still go through it, like they think it's the end of the world. It's going to change everything that I am. It's going to change what everybody thinks of me. It's going to change the environment I have to live in, so on and so forth. But it doesn't need to be this way.
Hi, everyone. This is Nina popping in real quick while editing. I just wanted to give you a trigger warning. This next portion includes a reference and mention of suicide.
I get that the world still don't understand what's different, but the fact that someone would rather, and I say this, with a lot of sadness, but the fact that someone still would, in some cases, would rather take his own life than say I'm gay, it's a big, big, big statement, and that needs to change. But we
Hmm.
can't force anyone to do it. Obviously, I don't think that's the right idea. I think people should just feel comfortable. There are so many things to hate today. This should not be one of them. There's so much evil and shit going on, sorry, going on in the world, that we could focus on and try and help each other with. This specific topic, like gay, it's like, so I don't get why people hate the idea so much and why they make it so difficult to come out of the closet.
Absolutely. And also the suicide rates that you mentioned are extremely high amongst the
Mm.
LGBTQA community. It's really shocking and
It's
really, really
very
sad to see.
unfortunate. Yeah.
hmm What would you recommend for young people who feel the need of coming out, or who might be ready or not ready yet to come out? What would you recommend for them? Maybe something that is helpful to them.
I wish that, everybody that has a feeling about himself would be able to advise with like a best friend, advise with a teacher, advise with a person that we all have this inner logic within us that helps us identify good people. Yeah, sometimes we may be wrong, sometimes we may get hurt, but we do understand if that's a person that we can talk to. So I wish that those people that feel that confusion would open up and just go and talk to somebody about it. And once you say it out loud to someone else, to someone sympathetic, you understand that it's not the end of the world. I don't understand why and what that process does to a person, but it just works. And I wish I've done that when I was younger because I kept so much in my own head. It can drive you crazy and like obviously push you from whatever you're walking on, especially if you're dealing with so much as a kid, as a teenager. So just talk, find somebody, even a stranger, tell them, I think I might be gay, I think I may be attracted to the same whatever. Like, just say it and see what happens next.
I think that's really amazing advice, because I do think, and that's why I would probably advocate for coming out, still being a necessity to some degree. The argument that I would make would probably be to come into your truth or your true self and to actually be liberated enough to speak out on it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, some parts of the world, like this is 2022. Some parts feel like it's like the future is already here. Like if you go around Tel Aviv, in some parts, most of the areas, you feel like anybody and everything is a little bit like what I felt when I was walking over the streets in New York. Like you can be
Mhm.
anyone that you want to be, and it's fine. And then you go to places like Jerusalem or I don't know the equivalent in the U.S. because I've only been like New York, LA, stuff like that. But you walk around in those places and you think like, oh my God, I need to be very, very specific in the way I look, the way I feel, the way I talk, the way I act, and that's just wrong. You see what happens right now in Texas with the abortion laws and how I think it's going to affect probably gay rights laws going forward. And it's just
Mhm.
scary to think that in some parts you still can't be just, a person. You
Yeah.
have to wear so many layers. And I don't know, I lost the topic, but it just came out.
Yeah,
It's
no, I think it's all connected. Yeah, human rights as a big topic, really. Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody.
Hello, hello.
So I wanted to speak on Pride Month, which has just passed in June. And I was made aware that a lot of people celebrated Pride Month, which was amazing, obviously. The more
Mm.
people are involved and show their allyship, even, the better, I think, for society at large. Now, I did notice that there were a lot of people who claimed it was more of a party event, and I did find that a bit shocking, to be honest. Um, well, not really shocking because it's no surprise. But I think a lot of people, especially people who are not within the LGBTQIA community, are not aware that Pride Month is actually a protest. It originally was founded as a march
Mm.
for human rights, really, specifically for the LGBTQIA plus community. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about people who are not part of the LGBTQ plus community joining in the parade?
So it depends if they're coming to the main party or not. No, no, I'm kidding. But the idea is like this. So it's going to be just a bit longer than I expected with the answer. But when I grew up in Jerusalem, the Pride Month was seen in my eyes as something terrible. I didn't exactly knew back then what was how it looks like. I thought that being gay means wearing a dress and being girly, and that's what happens in Tel Aviv, and that's what happens in the parade. That basically thousands of or millions of people come in with dresses and and just walk around. So I had a
Mm.
very weird perception of how it looks not being in the sort of gay community and thinking I'm straight and thinking this is all something very obscene. So I do understand the straight people that come into this thing saying this is going to be a great party, and that's what it is. It is unfortunate that we as a community don't have, I don't know, or the people that arrange the parade don't have the sense. I don't know if sense is the right word, but don't have the ability to create something a little bit more meaningful. So yeah, there is a party, of course, where there is gay, there is light, there is joy, there is loudness. We make it a point to be that way so that everybody can feel comfortable being a part of it. If it's loud enough, if it's
Mm.
awkward enough, it's if it's whatever it is enough, then people that walk in can feel immediately like a part of it, even if they're not, and that helps a lot of people that are in the closet and
Mhm.
like very afraid to approach. So that would be a really great stage to also tell people about what actually happens, why we do this parade, why this is happening, and not just make it a big party. And I think that's lacking, but I wouldn't know how to change it honestly at this point. I think like I saw a bit about 2 months ago of the one of the first parades in Tel Aviv. It was like, I don't know, like 16 people maybe. It was a very interesting video to watch. They were like, they had a small mic, like a megaphone in their hands, and they were speaking some, we're here, we're gonna stay here, it's okay to be who we are. And they were just walking around in a circle in the same spot for, I don't know, about like 30 minutes. That was the entire parade. Like, so that should be viewed like, on mega screens in the parades today, showing who we are, showing why we're here, showing how much the community has suffered needs to be part of it. That's it. Sorry, that was long.
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I think that was really an amazing answer to that. I spoke on a previous episode of the podcast. I spoke to Roy Freeman, who
Mm,
founded LGBT Olim, and he actually told me that a lot of people in the LGBTQIA plus community are not even aware of what the Stonewall riots are. Obviously, you can't expect everybody to be aware. Straight people, cis-binary people, I feel like it's just not really known because it's not taught as much in school. So yeah, I think there needs to be a change of awareness of what the history even is behind it all and why it is so important.
true, true. I Yeah, I don't know what would be the best, way to approach it, because every country and every region and every place that you're gonna go to, you're gonna have some sort of a religious like quantity or a party in the government, that's going to be against promoting any such of, this sort of history lessons in school. Just a few months ago, we had this incident here in Israel with a famous entity promoting transsexual an initiative book, and it was nothing. It was like it was really. I don't understand the way that people see it, view it, and block it all the time. I mean, kids do understand the world today. It's everywhere, and there has been nothing negative coming from the gay community throughout the years. Like, you would think that by now people would understand that it's not a threat, that learning, what we've been through in school, going through our history, it's like, even in a small part, would be very helpful to a lot of people to know and learn about acceptance. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Mm.
So I wanted to bring up shortly pronouns. So especially among straight people and cisgender people, I feel like there's a lot of misconception kind of around sexual orientation and gender
Mm.
or gender identity, which doesn't forcibly have anything to do with each other. But I've witnessed a lot of people still having an issue with understanding the whole
Yeah.
topic of it. Um, so, do you personally feel it is like discriminative to ask for the correct pronouns?
I get what you're asking. Again, I'm coming to this from two different worlds. So,
Hmm.
from the world of who I grew up to be and where I grew up, it's like they don't get it, I don't get it. It's like, why should I respect someone else, wanting to be called as she or they or him or them, or whatever. Like, why would I need to go into those complexities? Why can't it be just like simple, hi, what's your name? So that guy from Jerusalem that grew up in a very certain way, I don't know how to explain it, but he gets it, that why certain type of people have a problem with that. Then there is the other guy, the one that moved to Ramat Gan, the one that went through a personal process of coming out of the closet and getting to know the community and getting to know himself and loving himself, hating himself,
Hmm.
at the same time sometimes. And he completely gets why people want to sort of like be separated or recognized or understood and acknowledged with those pronouns. And it's so meaningful once you get it, that it completely changes your view and you totally respect it. It's not just, like, oh, I'll be politically correct and I'll say them or they or whatever, or I'll respect his opinion to his sort of like coming out to be bisexual or whatever sexual. And once you go through that process of, I don't know how to call it, like enlightenment, you understand how important it is for a person to be able to distinguish himself, make himself known as A or B or Z or nothing at all.
Hmm.
So there's like a combination of those two types of people, and I don't know today exactly how to come to that, guy from Jerusalem and explain to him why it's so important, because I know he's going to disrespect it. No matter what I do, he has to go through a process. She has to go through a process of that specific enlightenment themselves in order to understand it better. And so it's a complicated issue. I do understand the people that don't get it, but you just have to be a person to respect it at the end of the day. And if you can't do that, then I don't know, shame.
Yeah, absolutely. For binary and cisgender people and straight people altogether, it's a lot of times if they're not really knowledgeable on the topic or whatever you want to call it, educated or informed
Hmm.
or whatever, I think it's hard for them to understand even
Then
asking
ask. Yeah,
pronouns.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just ask. Be
Um,
open about it. That's all it takes. People are afraid that they might step on something they don't understand. They just need to ask.
mm.
Sorry, go go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I agree. I think it honestly, to be most inclusive in our society, I think we should just ask everybody what their pronouns are if we want to address them with the pronouns. Um, instead
And
of,
more than that, I
yeah.
think I think that's the specific problem, that people are afraid, not just the pronouns, but the people are afraid to ask why. But they are, they're coming from uneducated. Not to say anything bad about anywhere or anyone, but they're coming from the uneducated specific um, criteria, let's call it like that. So you don't know why this happens, you don't know why people even go in this path. Ask, be open. Like, people are not going to get offended by a question, probably, if you ask it correctly and gently, and and not like in a terrible
Hmm.
way. Yeah.
So you have actually publicly spoken on the experience of being a teenager and being gay, but not having come out. What would you like parents to know and for them to teach their children?
I am today, these days, sort of like, I'm already in the process of getting to do. I don't know how to explain in English. So there is this concept of co-parenting where you meet a woman and like a stranger and
Mhm.
you form a partnership and you bring a baby to the world together. And this is something that I'm doing these days and actively looking, for the right person to do it with. So this brings a lot of thoughts about when I'm going to be a father, and it actually brings, something to the reality of how am I going to deal with my kid being gay or not or whatever. And it makes me think of myself as a parent and other people as parents. I went through hell when I came out of the closet because I thought that I have lost my parents' love. They weren't terrible to me, but they took it very difficult, and I loved them very much and they loved me very much. And it was like the end of the world has arrived. Like, what now? Like, I don't have any parents, I don't have any brothers. Like, what happens next? So today, obviously, it took him some time to get to a point where they realize it's not the end of the world. And my mom had to go out and talk to people. That's the key to everything. Just put in the words put in the thoughts into sounds. Like, I'm putting just saying the words, talking to people. So she talked to a friend at her job, and she was very, very scared at the beginning, like, oh my God, what would if people will know, and what will happen if my mom knows, like her mom's, and so on and so forth. And it actually took 6 or 7 more years for us to be able to tell my grandmother. And then just a year later, I lost her to COVID, which was so freaking frustrating because I finally had this closeness with her. And
Mhm.
so I guess my advice to parents would be to just talk, talk, talk. Let the demons out. Once you say it again, same as the kids, it's just not that terrible. And it's your kid. It's doesn't change anything about him, about her, about them. It's just, the same person with different equities, and better ones. Because I think that when you go through the process of coming out of the closet and getting to know the community, and what, yeah, there are negative things, but mostly there are a lot of positive things that you learn about yourself as a person, about an individual, about yourself as an individual. And that's a much, much, much deeper path than just the normalized path that most people go in life. So just talk.
So, as far as I've understood, you've lived in Israel all of your life. What rights do you have in Israel as opposed to some other places, or what rights aren't established yet?
Israel is a democracy, right?
Hmm.
And I've lived for Israel my entire life, apart from a few years in New York. But the in terms of right, it's always been basically, I don't know, like, there has been no rights. There has been no. I think in 1980 something, 1982, something like that, like the actual law that said that a guy and a guy can't be together was removed from the Israeli constitution only in 82. So actually only over the past few years laws have been created and amended for us to be able to actually bring kids, do surrogacy. There hasn't been any special amendment throughout those years. So yeah, it's a democracy, everybody can be whoever they are, but I don't have any tax reductions, which I should, and gay marriage is still not legal. So it's complicated. We don't have the same rights, and right now, as straight people, and only throughout the past few years, it's been amended, truly amended. So that it's still an issue, and it's still going to be an issue. I think because we are a religion country first, and democracy after, it's still
Hmm.
going to be issue for the years to come, and we still need to fight. We still need to be in front of everything, and not let this slip into whatever this is going to be.
So, do I understand correctly? Before 82 or whatever that year was, um, you weren't actually speaking on same sex marriage, but you were speaking just being in a couple was
Yeah,
illegal?
yeah. I think until 82,
Wow.
it was officially illegal, and it was very. I mean, no actions were taken. It was, just laws. But I think until then, it wasn't even allowed publicly. Gays were still being beaten down and chased, by police in parks and whatever. And not to talk about bars that were open. The fight was there. The fight was always there by a bunch of people, very small community, and they are the ones to really, make the change. Today we are so freaking lucky to be alive, in this specific era, because we have the gay pride, and we have bars and parties and restaurants and hotels and leaders, and everything is just, completely free. And yeah, there will be bad opinions, there will be homophobia always, unfortunately, but it's different, and laws are finally, coming out our way as well. Some cities in Israel already include tax rewards to gay people, same as straight people. Obviously, the gay surrogacy. So it's finally allowed in Israel, which makes a lot of difference, because when we grow up and we have no direction to have kids, or the option to have kids, then we have to seek for meaning in other ways, because I think there is a lot of meaning in bringing a family and being able to create a family, and create that. So without that, you have to find like some sort of a path that gives you, a meaning in life, at least in my eyes. So that bringing that into the law means so much, and I think it's going to do a lot of difference in creating a community, and supporting the community. Giving it a lot more purpose than just what we have today.
Mm.
It doesn't need to be about the struggle as much as it needs to be about the path. And I hope that the governments, throughout the world will allow us to continue and just be, not just fight all the time.
Yeah, plain and simple, to make life choices, right? That
Yeah,
are entirely up to you, or should be entirely up to you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, on your recent post, you spoke on the importance of Pride Parade and made a very touching plea for the importance of honoring and respecting yourself as you are. And that really touched me personally.
Hmm.
You had written that you're sometimes still unsure whether you should get defensive before somebody even says something or knows all about you and everything. And this really resonated with a lot of stories that I've heard of
Mm.
minorities, really, that I hear all the time, sadly. Do you think being a Jewish gay man adds another layer of difficulty to like how people treat you, how you're met with?
Yeah, well, it's sort of like read the room. So sometimes it's a strength, and sometimes it's a real weakness. Not every person has the ability to navigate between those two rooms and understand where he is, which would make any person automatically sort of like raise up all of the fences at once, and like I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm like going to be quiet and not sure what I'm going to say. So I still walk into business meetings, I still walk into new acquaintance in certain places in Israel and sometimes in the world, like
Hmm.
being a little bit, um, I don't know, on the edge. So I'm not gonna mention who I am, and some of us sound a little bit more feminine, which makes it obvious for some people to think, that they are gay. And some of us sound a little more masculine. And there are all sorts of tags around this for people that don't understand it to immediately, put something on it.
Hmm.
So knowing all of that, it makes it so hard sometimes to just be you. And it's difficult and it's not fair, but it is unfortunately what it is still. So yeah, this is why I think we should definitely be talking about it and let people just be who they are and not put tags on it. And I don't want to go into a room and have to explain why I am who I am, and if I'm gay or straight or married or not or whatever. Just
Hmm.
be with the person in front of you, talk to him, get to know him, talk about the materials we have in front of us, and not judge him because he's X or Y. Or that's the thing, that's still difficult, and that still strikes me.
So fortunately, I don't really have any friends who are like this, but I do hear it from strangers on the street or whatever. Even in like TV shows that are approved by a network,
Mm,
there still seems to be a lot of like misconceptions on how one's love is different when you're gay, or like really within the LGBTQIA community.
mm.
Can you tell me a bit about your personal experience? Because I feel like people think that being gay means that you live this specific life.
No, it's totally the same. We're all screwed up. Top to top to bottom, straight, gays. It's really the same.
Hmm.
It's so we have different sort of process of healing as a person, growing as a person, because we have to go through a lot more stuff than a straight person, I think. You know, when people hate you just because who you are or who you sleep with or who you kiss with, and you have to find a mechanism to either say very strongly, this is who I am and you're not going to hate me, or I am so loud because you made me quiet for so many years. Then you have to struggle to find another voice. It makes you different. And no doubt about it. It makes you a little bit more strong out. It makes you a little bit more of a voice as a person, which you won't necessarily be if you just go through lines, you know, that most people, most humanity goes through. There is a difference in as a person that you are. But this is true for every person in the world. We all go through something. We all have a story. We all have been, you know, traumatized in some way and happy in other ways. So it's all the same. It's really all the same at the end of the day. That's my
Hmm.
opinion of it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, you can't speak for everybody, but your personal experiences,
Yeah.
I think, hopefully insightful also for other people. And now, specifically for our younger listeners, how did you figure out that you were actually gay? What made you come to that conclusion? Maybe what could help listeners that are sort of having those feelings or not sure, like how they can figure out who they
Mm.
are and who they're attracted to and so on. What would you recommend for them?
Well, I think I first understood it when I watched reruns of Xena the Warrior Princess, and
I've never
it
seen
w-
that.
it's such a great iconic past show. But no, I'm kidding. But I think I basically realized it. I don't know. I think you just know person that is gay or bi or whatever that has some sort of a sexual curiosity around the same sex. You know that you don't look at people in the same way, you know, that a straight guy would look at a
Mhm.
woman, I think. And you know that something is a bit different. So you need to ask yourself what it is. You need to listen to the inner voices telling you, asking those questions, answering them. As I said again, you know, putting it into words, write it down and try to figure out what it is that you think is hot about that guy or about that girl and what attracts you there. It could be a character, it could be a personality, it could be something more graphic. So for me, I think it was a neighbor that I had, a neighbor on a motorcycle. He was a police officer. And whenever he used to come home, I used to hear the motorcycle, and I would like run to the window to look at him. I
Yeah.
didn't understand. Yeah,
Uniforms, right?
uniform. Yeah, it was like I was so struck by him, and I didn't even realize that I'm doing something. Like I would run through the house. My mom was in the living room. My dad, my brothers, but I would run through the house and look through the window, and it was very obvious. But I didn't know what it means. They didn't know
Mhm.
what it means. Nobody talked about it. We didn't talk about anything, but it just happened. And eternally, I think that obviously, you know, that's it means I knew, I understood. And if we would have talked about things, you know, when I was a kid, maybe it would have been much earlier and easier.
Mm. What do you think is most important nowadays for straight and cis-binary people specifically to learn and begin to understand about people? Maybe I'm not sure whether you can speak on other identities or simply sexual orientations and their experiences. What is most important for other people to learn?
I think at the end of the day, you just need to be able to respect people's territory and space.
Mhm.
not get, in their face with. So I've mentioned you need to be able to ask, but you also need to be able to be a person and know how to ask, when to ask, what to ask. You can't just come to a person, and shove your finger in his chest, head, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and go all up in his business. You need to respect people because there is such a huge, 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 huge journey behind every person at the end of the day. And I can come and and ask a simple question, and that question would tap into a trauma or something that a person has been through, you
Mm-hmm.
know that you don't even realize, whether you're straight, gay, binary, whatever. Like, every person has a journey, behind them. We need to be able to respect one another. It's such an easy cliche, but it does change everything if you come with that perspective to a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have
Mm-hmm.
that. All of us have that. That what differentiates us from animals. We Unless there is some really radical case of a person, that grows up to be, I hate everybody and I hate everything and I'm going to do whatever I can to destroy the world, which most of the humans are not, then you do have that logic. You do have that common sense. Freaking use it. And, just be a person. Be a
Mm-hmm.
person.
Now, I
Yeah.
know that you're a bit on a time crunch, unfortunately, but I have one
Yes.
last question. What do you think one can do to be a better ally to the LGBTQIA plus community?
Mm, don't make assumptions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everything that you think that and base, your comments or marks on it, don't. Just educate yourself, listen to stuff like this, learn about the community, learn about the journey that we've been through. It's not what it seems like from the outside, parties and pride and blah blah blah. It's a genuine thing and path that we have to go through every single day in order to get to where we are. So learn a bit about it before you approach somebody in the community, with the questions that you have. Do approach with the questions. Do talk like a human being, like a person, but learn. Learn before you talk. And I think that would be the best advice to people who want to approach, help, assist, make a change, whatever, and just, connect at a basic level.
Well, that was beautifully said. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you have to go off and run, but thank you so much for your insights and for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Upfront Podcast. Please do consider subscribing wherever you are listening right now so you won't miss out on any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at The Upfront Podcast and join in the conversation. See you next time.